Hi, this is Dave, and welcome to the Table, a series of videos where I review and discuss various board and card games, looking at them from a family perspective. Today we're going to be taking a look at the third edition of Jumpgate from Matt Warden Games. There's been two previous editions that have been released. This has been refined and has had upgraded components added to them. In Jumpgate, it's a 2 to 5 player space exploration set collection game where you set out to explore various planets, to gather up their resources, and to settle those planets. Let's take a look at this game and how it's played, and I'll come back and I'll give you my thoughts. Okay, in Jumpgate, the components that we see here, we have a full color rule book that explains everything from setup all the way to scoring, with some nice colored diagrams and explanations of everything that you'll need to play this game. This is a very well written instruction manual. Next, we have a number of decks of cards here, and the first one we have are these NavComp cards, and if we flip them over and we look at them, they have a bunch of different symbols and numbers on them, and these symbols are going to represent a few different things. If we look here, this blue square, this is used to determine Jumpgate coordinates, to jump from one planet to the next. The green symbol down here at the bottom is what you would use for scanning a planet for resources. And this little yellow thing here would be a landing code for landing and settling a planet. The squiggly line is a wild, which means it can fill in for any number. But for example here, this would be a 1 or a 3. And so these cards, they're all different, and some of them have 2 abilities that they can provide, and other ones have 3. So there's a whole stack of these cards right here. Next, we have a stack of planet cards, and there's a whole bunch of different looking planets here, and they will vary how many are being used depending on the number of players, and each of them will have a Jumpgate code, a scan code, and then there is 2 numbers here that would be the landing codes in order to settle this particular planet. Now, we have some player reference cards here that will explain the actions, and then at the back how to score. We have this black hole card, which I will get into during the gameplay, but this will keep track of how close we are to the danger zone. And we have a stack of resource cards here, and these are the different types of resources that we're going to be looking to harvest and collect from these different planets. So we have gems, and we have some energels, we have sand, we have water, and there's even some fame in there too. Next, this game will play from 2 to 5 players, and so each player will have their ship and corresponding markers that come with the game. So let me get this game set up and I'll show you how to play. Okay, I've gone ahead and I've set Jumpgate up for a 2-player game, and the first thing that I did was I placed the black hole card in the center of the board, and I shuffled up the planets, and I dealt the planet cards face up in a pattern around the black hole, and this is going to change depending on the number of players that are playing the game. But for 2 players, there's going to be 6 planets dealt face up. So as you can see, I have the planets dealt here. I took the remaining planet cards and I placed them in a stack face down next to the black hole, and this signifies the jump gate, and that's going to be where the game will start, and so each player will then put their ship on that particular space. Next, what I did was I shuffled up all of the resource cards, and normally in a game, if there's more than 2 players, each player will be dealt 2 resource cards face down, but in a 2-player game, we were dealt 3 resource cards face down. And we will look at them to see what we have, and if for some reason we had a fame card in here, we would take the fame card and we would take it out, and we would draw another card, and then we would shuffle that fame card back into the deck to be distributed later on. So I looked there, we don't have any fame cards here, we don't have any fame cards here, so we're good to go that way. Next, after, if there was any fame cards, we shuffled them back into the deck, and we dealt 3 resources face down to each planet, and 1 face up for each planet. Any leftover resource cards are then set aside, and they are not used for this particular game. Okay, next I shuffled up the NavComp cards, and each player was dealt 5 of those that are face down, and the remaining cards are forming a draw pile here next to the black hole. Then each player took their respective markers for their color, and they have their player reference card here. And so we have quite an extensive setup for this game, and it takes up pretty good amount of space, so you're going to want to be playing this on a larger size table. Okay, now on a player's turn, they are going to be able to take two actions, and they may take the same action twice. So the first thing that they would be able to do is fly, and they would be able to move to from one planet to an adjacent one. Now in the beginning of the game, they won't be able to do that because they can't fly anywhere. They're going to have to use a jump card in order to jump to one of these planets. They can also jump to a planet, and what they would do is they would look through their hand, and they would be able to take one of these cards in their hand, and they would discard it, and they would be able to jump to one of these planets that has this jump number on it. So I have either a 1 or a 4. So if I discard one of these, I would be able to jump to one of those respective planets. Next, I would be able to scan, and now to scan, I would discard a particular card that would match the current planet they were on. So for example, if this player was here on this planet, there is a number 2 here in their scan area, so they would have to look to see if they have one right here. They would have a 2 here, and they would discard this, and they would be able to scan this planet, and what they would do is they would take one of the face-down resources, and they would place it face up on the top, and then they could in turn mark one of those resources to be claimed later. Okay? Then the next thing, next action that they could do on a turn is to land and claim a planet, and the only way they could do that is if all of the resources are face up, so there's no more face down resources on the planet, and then they would have to discard the 2 landing code cards that would be on here. For example, here's a 1 and a 3, and I don't have a 1 or a 3, I have a couple of 2s, so I would not be able to settle this particular planet. But if I did, I would discard those 2 cards, and then I would take my token here, and then I would be able to claim any resources that were already previously marked by me, and 1 additional unclaimed resource. And another action that we could do is to harvest, and what we would be able to do is if we were on a planet, we would be able to discard one of our NavComp cards. It doesn't matter what they are, and then we would be able to take one of the marked resources that we had, or I'd be able to take one unmarked resource and put it into my hand. And finally, one other action we can do is called research, and that's the only way we can get more of these NavComp cards. And what we would do is we would discard any if we wanted to, and we would be able to draw back up to 5 NavComp cards. So those are the types of actions that we have. I will go ahead and demonstrate a couple rounds of gameplay so that you have a better understanding of how it all goes together. Okay, let me show you a couple of turns in how this game is going to play out. And so the first thing that we need to do is we need to be able to get out of this jump gate and start moving to some of these planets. And on our turn, we'll be able to do many different actions, as I explained already. Now, we're going to look at our cards that we have in our NavComp here, and we're going to have to make some decisions because we're going to want to go to these planets, we're going to want to explore these resources, and we're going to want to collect them so that we can be able to score points. Now, one thing that I did not note before, and that is if you see any resources here, not so much ones that we start off with, but ones we uncover, if we claim any of them that have this marker on there, we will in turn have to place a marker on the black hole card. Now, if we get all 7 spaces are filled up with markers, the game will end because of the black hole. Now, at the end of the game, whenever the game ends, and there's other ways that it will end, whoever has the most markers on here will end up losing all of their hidden resources that they started off with. Okay, and if there's a tie for some reason, if the game ends and maybe there was only 4 of them on here, and if two players each had 2 on there, they would both lose their hidden resources. Now these resources will stay hidden during the game. Anything else that has been taken will remain face up. So let me get back to what we needed to do here, and that was we needed to be able to move. So on our turn we have 4 different actions. So the first thing that I want to do is I am going to jump to a planet. So what I will do is I will look around here at the different types of planets that we have here, and maybe what I'm going to choose to do is I'm going to jump to a planet that has a jump code of 4. So if I discard this, there are 3 different planets that I can choose to move to, but maybe I want to be able to scan for some resources. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to Chandleria, and what I will do is I will discard this card, or once I jump here, I'm going to move here. It has a jump code of 4, so I move there. I'm sorry, wrong marker. Green one goes here. Now for my second action, I want to be able to scan, so what I need to do is scan or discard a card that has a scan code on there. Now I can't use this for both actions, it has to be one or the other. So I discarded this one first for the jump to number 4. This one I am discarding now to scan for number 1. This has a scan code of number 1 on this planet. So what I will do is I will in turn take one of these resource cards and I will flip it over. Now, looking at the resources that I have hidden in my hand, maybe I want to try and get sand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a marker on there and I will mark that particular resource. That's the end of my first turn. Now, for this player right here, what they're going to do is they're going to do similar action. They're going to need to get off of this jump gate, and they'll be able to move to a planet. So they will discard this 1 here, and he's going to jump to this planet back here, this Bu-Hagar. Now, while they're on that planet, they're going to want to do the same thing, too. They're going to want to scan, and that has a scan code of 4. So they will discard this 4 scan code card here, and they will uncover this particular resource. Now, looking at their cards over here, and we've got a couple of Energels here that they're looking for, so maybe we will want to try to claim that particular one. So we'll mark this for later use. Now on our turn here, then maybe the next thing that I want to do is, it's back to my turn. I have 2 actions. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fly to another planet. So I'm going to fly to Elisana, and I will in turn discard this card here to number 2 to scan this particular planet here. And we will look at this, and maybe I don't necessarily want water, but I do want to start getting some of those Energels, because when you start having them together, they will gain you more points. So I'll mark this one here, and that is my second turn. This player over here, they're going to look at what they're going to do, and maybe he wants to get that Energel right away. So what he's going to do is he will just discard one of these cards here, and he will use the harvest action, and he will take this card here, and he will place it face up in front of him, and that marker will be returned to him. So we know now that he has taken a light Energel resource. That was his action. Now I'm running kind of low on cards here. So on my turn, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the research action, and I will be able to draw back up to 5 cards. So now I'm back up to my full strength here, and maybe what I'm going to do is I will discard one of my cards here for the harvest action to grab this dark Energel here and place this in front of me, and the marker is going to come back. Now, if I note that neither one of those cards had any one of these black hole markers on there, but if I did claim one, I would have to place one of my markers on the black hole. Now, this play is going to continue around, uncovering these different resources, and once we have uncovered all of the, like we've discovered all of the resources here, now they've been founded and they were up on the top, what I would be able to do on a particular planet is I would be able to settle that particular planet, and I would have to discard the 2 landing code cards here, and then I would be able to claim that particular planet. And so this is going to go around, and claiming planets is worth points too. So this is going to go on until we reach the end of the game, and there are 3 different ways to which this game will end. First of all will be when there's 7 or more markers on the black hole, or if there are no more resources at any planet. So if we had gone to one of these planets and we had depleted everything, then the game is going to end that way, or after the last planet has been claimed. So there's a couple different ways you can go around playing. You can either try to gather up the resources right away, or you can try to settle all the planets. Once we're done, there's going to be scoring that is going to be done. So I will explain that to you right now. Okay, to score the game at the end, what you will do is you will in turn, first of all, look at the black hole card here, and depending on the player who has the most markers that would be on the black hole card, they would end up having to discard their 3 starting hidden resource cards. So these would no longer count for them if they had the most on the black hole. If they were tied, both of those any players that were tied on here would have to discard their starting resources. Now, the way that this would score then is for each planet scored, you will receive 4 points. And then if you start looking at the various resources, depending on the type of resource, they will count for various number of points. For example, here if we look at sand, the first one, if you just have 1, is worth 1 point, 2 is worth 3, if you have 3 of them it's worth 7, 4 is 13, so on and so forth, to where it gradually you get more points depending upon how many you have. So if you happen to have like 9 or more sand, you're going to get 45 points. Now these energels, if you have just 1 by itself, it's worth 2 points, but if you manage to score a light and dark together, you're going to get 7 points. So that's kind of a unique thing to be working at, trying to get pairs of those. Now with the water is going to be similar to the sand, where 1 is going to give you 2, 2 is going to give you 4, 3 will give you 9, 4 will give you 16, so on and so forth. Now some of these, if you have a fame card here, any fame cards you're going to have will give you 5 points. And these gems here, the way that these will score is you will take the most gems of one color. So if we had a whole bunch of white gems, if there was 4 of them, and we had a total of 9 gems, if we had 4 of the, or I'm sorry, yeah, if we had 4 of these white ones, we would take 4 times the total number would be 9. It would be worth 36 points for gems. So there's like a multiplier that's involved with that. So you will multiply up your scores, you will add up everything, and whoever has the most points wins the game, and that is Jumpgate. Okay, let's talk about Jumpgate here, and first of all, let me start off and say this is an excellent game. There is a lot to this game, but it's not difficult. You just have a lot of choices that you can make, which makes this game really, really rich, and it makes it very enjoyable to play. So you're going to have plenty of replayability with Jumpgate. Now let me start off with talking about the artwork for this game. And the artwork, the planets look really, really cool. And on the cards, I wasn't able to zoom in to show you the cards because I had such a large playing area. But on the cards, the symbols for the jump gate or the scan codes or the landing codes, they're very, very easy to understand what they are and very easy to read. There's a nice font that is very simple to be able to understand. Looking at the NavComp cards as well as the resource cards, those are from a mini deck, yet everything is still able to be read easily, and you get the idea of what you need in terms of the resource cards telling you what you're going to collect and how they're going to score, and then the NavComp cards are going to easily identify what each of those cards, what your choices are for each of them. I like the fact that even though there are multiple symbols on the NavComp cards, that you can only use it for one thing. So you have to make a choice. So you're going to have some decisions as to how you're going to manage your resources. So that is definitely something that makes this game have a little more meat to it. Now, at the heart of this game, it is a set collection game. And the neat thing about these particular sets is that each particular resource scores differently. So you're going to have to choose how you're going to go after them. Looking at sand and the water, those will kind of incrementally increase the score depending upon the number that you have. But now you start looking at the Energels, and the really cool thing is those score in pairs between the light and the dark. So you're going to want to try to balance out and try and get some of both. Because yeah, you'll get 2 points for each of the Energels by themselves, but if you happen to have both of them together, you're going to pick up an extra 3 points. So instead of having like 2 light Energels or 2 dark Energels, where you'll only get 4 points, if you can get one of each, you're going to get 7 points. And then the multiplier aspect for the gems is going to make you have to, again, try to strategically choose what types of gems to go after. And so if you have the opportunity to grab more of one type, it's going to give you more points in the end. Now, you also have risk management in this game, because you're going to have to weigh the options of when you're going to harvest those cards that have the black hole symbol on them, because if you end up having too many of your markers on the black hole, at the end of the game, you will end up losing your initial starting hidden resources. And what's going to happen there is if you already were starting off with 2 of the same type of thing, it's going to have a negative effect on your final score. So you're going to have to weigh your options that way. Now, looking at this game from a family perspective, you have those aspects that I mentioned before. We have the resource management, risk management, and decision-making skills are all in there. So this game is going to definitely pick up and develop those particular skills. So it's going to really give you something to wrap your head around when you play this game. And especially if you're going to play this with kids, they will be able to understand this game, but they're also going to really have to learn to make decisions. So it's going to improve their skills. I really, really like this game, Jumpgate, and I like the overall theme of exploring the planets. I like the scaling of difficulty for this game because it plays very similarly between 2 players and 6 players. It just happens to be that there's more options and more choices that you have going on. So again, this game, there's so much to it, yet it's very, very easy to play. Okay, and so that's Jumpgate from Matt Warden Games. And if you're interested in wanting to explore the galaxy and looking at different planets in an attempt to settle them and gather up their resources, then check out the game. I'll have the link for the game below in the video description. Alright, that's it for now, and join me again next time as we take a look at another game and we see how it makes it to the table.